All right, hello everybody. Welcome. This is the Upper Dublin School District Operations Committee. Note is September 19th, 2019, and I will call the meeting to order. First up, pull up the agenda. Mr. Larkin, do we have any announcements?
We do not have any announcements.
Okay, thank you. We do have minutes from the August 22nd meeting. If anyone has corrections, please get them to Brooke. And we'll jump right into the reports and recommendations, starting with the Sandy Run project update. Bob?
Yes, attached to the agenda are several items that Dewey Engineers has prepared for us. The latest update, the project status update, was created in August, and since that was handed out, significant progress has been made. As everybody knows, we are in the modulars, the parking lot was finished, but significant work has started on the annex and the property surrounding the annex. We start with utility relocations have been occurring. That has been the one delay was PECO, Verizon, Comcast moving from Twining Road. There was one pole left they were working on earlier today. Hopefully we'll have the rest of the poles removed next week. But JDM has been working around them. Right now they're just holding hold for some materials to replace the sewer line that we talked about. But they have put the base coat down. So we do have the turning lane. They helped us out with the sidewalks. So we do have a path from the intersection of Twining and Limekiln to Martin Lane. The students were using the old sidewalk for a while, but now the fencing is going up, so that'll be blocked off very shortly. So they will need to continue up to Martin Lane and in Audubon using those sidewalks. The asbestos abatement, that was completed yesterday. We received the all clear, so our staff is back out in the building to gather up any remaining items, more scrapping usable parts off items that we can use, some fire alarm parts, security parts that we're scrapping out. Furniture has been removed. So we're ready to turn over for demolition. Tomorrow we do meet with the township officials. They do a pre-demolition walkthrough. That will occur. Tomorrow we expect to have their sign off. Final utility shut off for the building is going to occur on the 26th of this month, and demolition will start directly after that. So by October 1st, we will be in full demolition mode for the building. Anybody who's been around the property lately has noticed all the trees came down. It only took them about 3 hours with their equipment to take down all the trees surrounding the building. Surprised at the condition of some of the larger trees. The large sycamores in the back always thought were in great condition, had a lot of rot, so it's good that they were taken down before they start to fall down. From the outside, the trees look great, but when you cut them down the inside, it did look poor. So land is being cleared. There's also started on 2 of the retention basins. Immediately after groundbreaking, they started pulling topsoil off. That's where we have sediment holding tanks going into the ground. So that surveying has started. Sewer line, our new sewer line also was connected in. We made the tap and they ran enough pipe that they'll be out of the way. The road improvements and other site work going on. So the tap into the sewer line is already completed. So really progressing along well.
All right, any comments or questions? All right.
Some of those trees, the memorial section.
Yes, stones were gathered. Ahead of time. Yes, the stones were gathered. We did a survey. It has been written down which trees were for which memorial.
Okay, perfect.
Weather's been cooperating now, and even for the next couple of weeks, it looks really good for the weather.
Yes, some drying will help. There has been some allowance adjustments for as they were doing paving, some unsuitable soils with all the rain that we had. We really had some muddy conditions along Limekiln Pike, on Twining Road, that we had to excavate a little extra material, put some more stone in while they were working.
Now, during demo, are they going to be spraying water and all that as with demo?
Yes, they will be doing dust control. That is mandatory. They will have dust control in place. We will have air monitors in place, be checking, make sure that there's no dangerous particles.
Okay, my last question, how long did they estimate the demo is going to be?
Demo will be approximately a month.
The doors that had some asbestos,
Oh, yes, that's, you did mention that. We were surprised at the amount of hidden asbestos in the building. We did allocate funds. We knew there was hidden asbestos behind the walls. Our environmental contractor did a great job of writing that in. So the contractor is already responsible for breaking open the walls to look for those fittings. We found more fittings than we expected. But the big surprise was that we found 81 doors that had contained asbestos. They were wooden doors. Most people we talked to just had never seen this before. I have not come across it before. They were doors where it just doesn't make sense to have anything inside them. They were closets in classrooms, the bathrooms that were inside the classrooms, just no reason to have asbestos in them. So we don't know if somebody made a deal, made a great deal on doors back then. We don't know why they were. It's just not something we'd see. If they were fire-rated doors, we would understand that, but these were not. But it also gave us something to look at in advance also when we go for the main building demolition, something that we're going to be aware of. In April, we're due for our 3-year inspection. I've asked the environmental consultant to start taking a look at the doors. Typically, we do the 3-year inspection when nobody's around. So we're going to take a better look at the doors to see if we have the same conditions in the main building.
they were safe.
Yes, everything was contained. How we found them was we allowed the SWAT team, and they broke a door during their training, and it just happened that the abatement contractor was on site and looked at it, and he said it looks like asbestos. It shocked everybody, so we decided to test it. When it came back hot for asbestos interior to the door. So we went around and sampled every door. We came up with 81 doors that contained some type of asbestos inside.
Is there an estimate, the additional cost?
Yes, the additional cost, we do have a change order they are working on. We will be going over for that in the future. It's for the asbestos doors and the cleanup. It was about $7,500 for the doors, another $600 in cleanup. But we also had some other items that were added to that as well. We did some remediation, cleaning, just to make sure rooms were safe.
So that'll come out of contingency.
That's correct.
And it was, it's far cheaper to have found those doors now while the contractor is here working. We're very fortunate it was found when it did. If the building was being demolished, the demolition contractor found those doors by accident, it would have been a job shutdown. So it would have been a delay during the project to remove the doors and do the cleanup at that time. So very fortunate we found it when we did.
So are these hollow doors filled with asbestos fibers, or I'm having trouble
It was
picturing a wooden door with asbestos.
It was how you would have a solid core door. The core of the door were asbestos panels, and they were the outer coating. There was a wood coating around everything, so the panels were safe. Then you had a harder fiber, asbestos fiber board, but inside was friable material. It looked more like it was a gypsum board type material. And that's what we originally thought when the door was broken, that it was filled with the gypsum. But now after testing, it was confirmed that it wasn't.
Okay. Any other comments or questions for Bob? All right, so we also have a budget update on the Sandy Run. You want to cover that?
So I wasn't planning on covering a budget update every meeting. I'll include this document in for the board and the community's review. If there's any material changes to the budget, I think that's when we would talk about that at each meeting, if that's okay.
That's okay with me. Any comments or questions? All right, so moving on to the window air conditioner change orders. That was hard.
Yes, change orders 1 and 2. It's a positive credit for us. The first change order, actually both relate to Jarretttown. First change order, while working one of the existing panels, we noticed poor conditions of the bus bars. Actually, the Bakelite that holds the bus bars in place and acts as the installation material was cracking. The bus bars were loose. It was recommended to replace that, and that was just over $3,000. But then we had a credit for $20,000. When we opened up the transformer that from Pico feeds our transformer, the line between our transformer and Pico was acceptable to reuse by PICO. We weren't sure of that at first. They had to come out and do the inspection when power shut down to see the cable, what type of cable, what the condition was. We did have a line item in there, an allowance for $20,000 to replace that. Since we didn't have to, that money's coming back to us. So we're just over, for the window AC project, we're just over a $16,000 credit.
Do all the older buildings have bakelite panels?
Yes, it's a standard material that holds your bus bars. It really acts as a separation between the bus bars and the
It
metal
wasn't
cabinets.
uncommon in the 60s. but-
No, and it's still used today,
Is
same
it?
material.
All right. Any comments or questions on those? Happy for some good news. So that's a change order, so we'll move those forward to the legislative meeting. Fort Washington window replacement status update.
Yes, Fort Washington windows, for right now, we are completed the work. Phase 1 is completed. We actually were able to get more work accomplished than anticipated. The first year, we were looking at just doing the 2-story section of the building, but we were able to do a 2-story section plus the library, which was a significant amount of work. So phase 1 is complete. Overall, the project's about 70% complete. We do have the windows, the material is made. Our architect is going out to York, Pennsylvania, to Graham Window Products to inspect them. So we'll probably be getting an invoice later on for the material that's already been built. It is built in storage, and he's going to inspect the documents to make sure it's properly insured before recommending that we pay for the material itself. They're also looking at some times, if we have times during break where they can take one room and complete one room, they're going to do that. So they are looking to get this work done. I expect it will be completed early August of next summer.
Okay, comments or questions? Right.
Yeah, the library looks great, I think.
The library's, the only outstanding item on the library is that the door, the new door panel needs to be installed. That was a change order that we given them the door there.
Right.
So they left the existing door until they get all those parts ready. That'll probably be one of the earlier projects that they take on. And actually, I do want to mention, we're going to be bringing up, in next meeting, we're working on proposals from our architect who's been managing the project for us. Things are going along so well. In his initial proposal, it was $9,100 if we made this a 2-year project. That's what his fee would be increased by. Things are going so well, he reduced that number for us because he has less work to do next summer, and he actually came to us willing to reduce the number to just over $6,000.
Okay, is that door, the $20,000 door?
$10,000.
$10,000.
You just told me.
All right, any other comments or questions? All right, happy for both.
Just, you know, the project's not done, but the air conditioning has been installed in
Correct.
every classroom.
The air conditioning was installed in every classroom, yes.
Clarify that.
And the contractor, or window contractor, owes taking the new air conditioners and installing them in the new panels in the classrooms that haven't been completed.
Right.
Okay, thank you. So we have some options on builder's risk insurance.
Yes.
Thank you.
So builder's risk is a separate insurance policy that we are required to have with the construction project. Our typical insurance that we carry on a year-to-year basis doesn't cover construction. This is planned as part of the budget. If you remember, we discussed this with Dewey. We got an estimate from our insurance broker, Willis Towers Watson. They estimated about $50,000 a year early on when we looked at this. And that's right about where the policy came in. So Willis Towers Watson went out and they tested the market and got us some quotes. They determined that Travelers was the most appropriate underwriter for this insurance policy, and then when they started talking to Travelers, they looked at 2 options for us. And basically the difference between the 2 options is the deductible associated with earthquake coverage and flood coverage there if that would ever happen during the course of the project. So what we're looking at here is option 1 comes with a deductible of $50,000, so it's a higher deductible. $50,000 on earthquake, flood, and water damage, and then $10,000 would just be the typical deductible on any other item that would be covered under the insurance policy. That premium for that option comes to $120,000. The other option is a lower deductible, so it's a $25,000 deductible on earthquake, flood, and water. The same $10,000 for everything else, and the premium for that policy is $144,000. So it's about a $16,000 difference for option 2, but it comes with a lower deductible. And if you remember, we recently had a flood insurance claim at Sandy Run Middle School over the summer. So, you know, the difference in deductible being $25,000 for the additional premium of only $16,000, I think our recommendation to the board would be to go with option 2, which is the lower deductible and the higher premium, but it's still within the budget that we set aside within the budget for the project.
Okay, thank you. Comments or questions?
There was also, the difference I noticed was the delay in completion, waiting period, consecutive days. What does that mean?
So that's the days, and that's more related to, you know, if we had to go beyond the end of the project as an example, and we had to keep the modulars as an example, we would pay additional per month for those modulars. We wouldn't start receiving, you know, anything back from insurance for that, for the payment of the monthly premium for the modulars, until we extend that, you know, that waiting period.
So again, the better policy looks like it's 7 days, and the other one is 15, so that's another advantage.
Correct.
And we budgeted, eventually, we got the budget for it. It's in the budget now for 150.
That's correct.
So we're there.
That's correct.
Anyone else? Okay, so I agree with your recommendation. Anyone else have a thought on that? Okay, so let's move that ahead to the legislative meeting with the option 2. All right, thank you. Disposal of 2 district vans. Yeah, Chris.
So before I got here, what was done with vans when we were getting rid of them was we just gave them away. So one of the things that I wanted to do was actually bring some money back into the district, because even though that value may not be significant, it still does hold a value that we should be getting. So I reached out to a few vendors in regards to scrapping them. One of them said, we'll come pick them up and we won't give you anything for them. Another one said, $350 and we'll come tow them. And the last vendor, was giving us the going rate, which works out to about $607 per van. So that being the highest that we could get for them, in this case, I would recommend that we go with that vendor.
So what you're telling us is we should be happy about getting $600 per van.
Well, happier than what we've done in the past. But, you know, we're still, Mr. Leckman and I have had conversations about going another route for future vans that we would dispose of, and actually putting them on this bid and hopefully getting even more money.
Do they work? Or are they dead?
They're rotting away. I wouldn't want to put students in them.
No, do they drive?
Yeah, they'll drive, but
Are they picking them up, or?
no, we would have to drive them to them in Bristol.
Okay, are we driving those vans to Bristol?
Yes, we would drive those vans to Bristol and then send a chaser van to pick up the drivers.
I was just wondering if there's any other options in terms of you donating it. I hear, you know, there's commercials and, you know, just to some organizations that might take it, but I get the sense that it really is not going to pass any kinds of inspections. And
No, and with these vehicles, we actually went to the state and got salvage titles for them, so really they're not going to be any good for anybody.
All right, any other comments or questions?
What year? Hold on.
Give you the exact years.
6:02.
I bought those things.
The one is a 2004 and the other is a 2005. So they're 14 and 15 years old.
All right, well, you know, if that's what we can get, so it's not a firm $607, it's based on weight once they get it, I take it, but,
Yeah, it's based on whatever the market value is for that day.
Yeah.
Obviously, the sooner the better. We already have the salvage titles in our possession, so that's something that we could get to them. Really tomorrow, I could have drivers take them down to them.
okay, well, actually, this, we probably don't even have to technically approve this at a legislative first, do we?
I think we would. I mean, let's just, we're not gonna, it's not gonna hurt us to wait till Tuesday of next week to get these,
Okay.
get these out here.
All right, so we'll put that on the legislative agenda. Any other comments or questions?
Just quickly, could we take it to the auctioneer in Norristown, one of those vans? I mean, since it's drivable, why don't we test the waters and see, drive one up to Norristown and then drive one over to the other place and see who gets more money?
We could do
It
that,
doesn't cost anything, right?
but as I said, it's a salvage title. There's not going to be much that somebody can do with it other than crush it.
Well, I mean, it didn't have a salvage title before it had a regular title, is that correct?
Correct, but now it does. It already has a salvage title.
And I think that's what we're saying is we wouldn't do that in the future. We would not salvage it. We would go to municipal bid or another type of auction and test the market and see what we could get through that method.
Also, in the future, Dr. Resnick asked me if Eastern might be interested in one of these. You know, in the future, if we have a vehicle that we can donate to Eastern, and the kids in automotive can work on those vehicles. So it's something just to think about. You know.
All right, we are up to community input. If anyone would like to address the committee, please come up, state your name, what part of the township you're from, and we have a 4-minute.
Good evening. My name is Mary Ann Jensen, and I reside with my family on Kenmare Drive in Dresher. And thank you for the opportunity for the community input tonight. What I'd like to do is address our pool reallocation topic that has been going on in the district, and talk about the fact that we have an incredibly valuable resource in our pool designed to be a multi-use facility. And then I'd like to talk a little bit about what are the benefits and costs of relocating the pool to pool time in the fall to 100% water polo. So the benefit for water polo is presumably that it will have better practices with more space. Given that they have more space currently than most water polo programs, the marginal benefit to the team and the community is likely to be relatively small. What are the costs to giving water polo the entire pool? The costs are likely to be significant. Upper Dublin Aquatic Club is probably the most successful sports program in Upper Dublin. It is clearly the most successful swim program in the region, while some programs like North Penn are larger due to the size of their district. There's no program that has had the level of national success that Upper Dublin Aquatic Club has had in the last 15 years. Now, the success is both in the pool and academically. In addition to many accomplishments nationally and internationally, we are a national renowned program. When people hear of Upper Dublin Aquatic Club, they know exactly where it is and who are the products. It's important to note the tremendous academic opportunities that UDAC has made possible for the swimmers. The program has enabled students to attend both top academic and swim programs in the country. To name a few, Penn State, University of Buffalo, Bucknell, University of Tennessee, Towson, Gettysburg, Cal Berkeley, University of Kentucky, Wisconsin, Drexel, Colgate, Bloomsburg. I know I'm leaving out several, but that was from the top of my head here. And just to put things in perspective, sending a swimmer to Cal Berkeley is like sending a quarterback to Alabama or a point guard to Duke. It is the premier swim program in the country. We also had 2 Upper Dublin swimmers on the cover of Swimming World this year as they won NCAA title. Also, Upper Dublin High School swimming program has been mentioned in Swimming World repeatedly. In addition, it's important to note that the tremendous success of the high school swim program is driven by UDAC swimmers. So if we're talking about our high school success, if UDAC is not producing great swimmers, then our high school team would not continue their history of excellence. If the real allocation occurs, UDAC's access to the pool in the fall would be cut in half, and this would be incredibly damaging to our program. With half the access, the program would have to shrink by 50%, which would be incredibly damaging and perhaps not economically feasible. This would likely lead to the end of UDAC's and the high school's incredible history of success. So in my opinion, the costs are bigger than the benefits, and that the reallocation of that time in the fall should not be considered. Thank you.
Ditto.
Jen Cousins, Port Washington. Just to follow up on that, I just had a question. How many kids are in the UDAC program? I know it's boys and girls, and how many kids are in the water polo program? And is it both girls teams and boys teams? I'm just curious, like how many children are affected? And is there a timeline for that decision? I don't know if, when that decision would be made, or if there would be some sort of other discussion about it, or if it's all happening behind the scenes. And then, as far as the asbestos in the doors, do we know for sure that we don't have the same situation in the older elementary schools, Jarretown, Fort, and Thomas Fitzwater? They're all kind of built around the same time. I'm just curious if we were looking into that. And the air monitors, can you just talk a little more about that? As 7th and 8th grade, still there are classrooms without any kind of air control, so I'm assuming their windows will be open. It's still quite hot in some of those classrooms. That's it, thank you.
Jenny Vitella, Ambler, which I can't help but say every time I'm at some meeting. To piggyback on all that, obviously UDAC and swimming is near and dear to my heart. I'm actually a product of UDAC and Upper Dublin Swimming, and my children are all involved in all of them. And Mary Ann Jensen actually at a previous meeting, probably about a year ago, when the pool was breaking 6 times in 1 year, that literally if you're not in the pool, swimming is an all year round sport. You literally have to be in the pool. If you're not in the pool, you're like a fish literally out of water. It's not like any other youth program out there. It just, UDAC should not be considered like Upper Dublin Township soccer. It's just not the same. We need that one resource. We have one pool, there's only one option. And there are kids, so technically right now, let's say my child is swimming for UDAC, that's who I'm paying. But the reality is he's on the high school swim team and he's just practicing in the morning because he also has a fall sport. So it's those kids, so is he not supposed to be practicing swimming? You have to be practicing. You can't start practicing on November 1st for Upper Dublin High School swimming because you'll be out of shape and we will lose lots of quality swimmers that have gone on. I mean, the girls swimming team has won for 30 years. They won the year I was a senior, by the way. Then there was a gap. But anyway, so swimming's just different. It just is. And UDAC, just to talk about that or compare it to Upper Dublin soccer, for example, it's not the same. Also, UDAC is tied in with USA Swimming and with Upper Dublin High School swim team. So it's all in one basket, even though it's all called UDAC. It's 3 different kind of programs all filtering in, and we need that time Those kids need to be in that pool or they will not be successful. Thank you.
All right, seeing nobody else coming up, we will close community input and possibly comment on some of these things. On the swimming, let me just set the stage by saying that this committee really doesn't have a lot to do with this decision. Day-to-day operational decisions like this are really the purview of the administration, not the board. And obviously, you're welcome to say whatever you want at community input. You know, if you want to give an update, please feel free, and then we'll move on to the other topic.
Sure. Before I say anything, I'll give Mr. Greiner just a heads up. I'm going to ask you about numbers and programs in just a minute. So, based upon the review of the policy and the administrative regulation for policy 707, our solicitor opined that UDAC would still be able to have access to the pool, that we wouldn't have to reallocate, or water polo would not push UDAC out of the pool. I think there have been a number of conversations Mr. Greiner can elaborate on to find some sort of compromise or some sort of happy medium so that both programs can exist and coexist in the betterment of our kids. I think as superintendent, I was receiving some emails last night and again this morning asking why I was favoring one organization over the other. And it was, why was I favoring UDAC over water polo? And I want to set that record straight. I'm not favoring one over the other. What I am in favor of is compromise, because both programs offer something great for our kids. So I am confident that if, since we're all adults, that we can work together and find a good compromise if we keep kids first. So with that, Mr. Greiner, I'm going to ask you to come up and share some numbers with us.
Just to, I guess, I don't know exactly numbers for UDAC.
I can provide that if you'd like.
That's
It's 298
Well,
registered.
hang on, before you do that, if the committee is interested in those numbers, we'll have them come up to the mic.
Fair enough,
so that
thanks.
it's, so that it's audible.
So I was guessing around 300, so it looks like I was clearly in the ballpark. With Upper Level Water Polo, we have about 42 kids, roughly 20 for each boys and girls, JV and varsity.
So, go ahead.
Just specify for UDAC what percent of that number, roughly, do the boys and girls, are they community members? Do they live in Upper Dublin?
For
Let's
water
have-
polo?
UDAC, for UDAC.
Do you want to,
Oh,
come up and speak to that?
Sure. Sure. Dan Fichter. I live in Fort Washington, and I'm the president of the UDAC board. So for the fall season, we have 298 residents or registrations. Our participation of Upper Dublin residents is 85, 84, or 86. So about 14 to 15% are out of township. Okay. Any other questions?
Any other questions from the committee for Mr. Victor or Mr. Greiner?
Happy to come back up if there is. Thank you.
Do you have anything else, Dr. Young?
No, not at this time.
So it really is, oh, I'm sorry.
You said 42 total or 42 for each?
total.
Total.
So, as I said, this isn't really an operations committee topic, so we're trusting that you'll work through this issue, Dr. Yanni. And, if the board's interested in an update, we'll ask you for one at some point.
I just wanted to add that a few of us were on the board when we first discussed approving water polo as a sport at the high school. before it was a club. And there's a significant amount of notes and videos in terms of what was said at those meetings and the agreements that were made at that time. And there was never any discussion at that time stating that the intent was to not have UDAC in that pool for the 10 weeks. For the 10 weeks, that was never brought up. I think if it would have been brought up, I think it would have generated a lot more discussion in terms of where we were going.
Yeah, the only issue I had with that list of schools that you mentioned that a lot of our swimmers are going to or have attended is they should have went to Wisconsin, should have went to Penn State.
That's why I didn't wear my Penn State shirt.
All right. On that note, let's move on to actual operations committee topics. Let's see, do we know if there are asbestos in other buildings' doors?
Based on the types of doors that we have in the other elementary schools, I think it's not likely, but we will take a look at that. Again, in April, we're due for our 3-year asbestos reporting, the mandatory reporting that we do for asbestos and remediation and conditions of anything existing. So we're going to take a look at that. Classroom doors, no, they are completely different built. I'm not concerned with that. Everybody knows the existing elementary door was all glass, so I don't expect to find any there. Very few. Most closet doors are metal, not the wood doors that we had in St. Run. We'll take a look. The only concern would be restroom doors in some of the classrooms, but I believe they're different construction, but we'll verify that.
And to test those doors, you have to take a core sample, or how do you?
They basically they take a core sample, very small core sample. What we do, we would just take a sample of each school, and if we find one, then we would lead you to take a look at others. But it's very minimally invasive. We would do it when nobody was around. It would be done by our environmental consultant. And the door would be resealed afterwards. So if we did drill a hole through it or into it, we would seal some type of caulk or epoxy.
And to be clear, if there is asbestos in any other building's doors, that asbestos is already contained. It's asbestos.
It is contained, yes.
Panels.
Yes, it is contained.
Not being breathed in.
And yes, and part of the removal of the doors, it was actually very simple. These existing doors, all they did was take the doors off the hinges, they loaded them on their truck, and they did the proper disposal at their site where they have the line dumpsters already.
Yeah, so yeah, cheap to remediate too.
Yes.
All right. Question about air monitors for the 7th and 8th grade classrooms that may have open windows during the construction period.
I don't want to misquote on what exactly they're sampling or methods they're doing, but I can look at that. They do monitor the air. They're looking for any particulates, any dust that we're starting out. They are going to be wetting down the site as they're demolishing, so if it is dry out, and there's any dust particles, they're going to be trying to keep those down. But I can get more information on the exact methods and what they're actually sampling for.
Okay. Great, thank you. Any other comments or questions? Stan?
If there's doors that are, in this elementary schools, they're not posing any danger if there's asbestos in them right now?
No, you would have to
Absolutely
breach.
not.
No, absolutely not. You would have to breach the door violently in some manner to expose that. Even doors that we found out later had asbestos that we, as part of training, we let the police force them where they broke the doorknobs. There's so much wood frame around the door that just breaking the door around the doorknobs, around the hinges, didn't expose anything. It wasn't until the actual center of the door was breached that we found that.
So there's absolutely no issues now?
No,
Traceable asbestos? So why would we want to check and see if a fully functional, safe door has asbestos in it, if there's absolutely no danger? And if it does, would we be opening up a can of worms where we would have to replace fully functioning doors that are perfectly safe right now and then add additional costs to our budget?
Yeah, we have the obligation as part of the asbestos reporting to find all asbestos. And most of the report, a lot of time, so if you look at our HERA reports that we have at each school building, we have a copy in the main office. it actually lists, most components are just assumed. They didn't even test everything. They assumed the materials, certain materials built in a day when they're using asbestos is going to have some type of containment. So they're actually listed as assumed. And that's part of our 3-year inspection, and we do a six-month inspection. We're fully compliant with the HERA laws, and we actually bring a consultant in to do this to make sure that we stay compliant, and if we aren't audited, everything is in place. You're allowed to have the asbestos as long as it's not friable and it's contained and it's protected, and that's what the reports do. They go around, they look, for instance, we know that we still have a lot of 9x9 tile in some of the school buildings. The annex and the main building at the middle school are full, but we have, most of the classrooms have been remediated, but we have closets and small spaces still that have it, and part of our inspection is looking at the condition. Could this become dangerous? Testing, if we know about it, we need to get that on the report so we make sure that we are inspecting it. It's very minimally invasive to do this. This is a case where you want to know. And if we decide to start replacing doors, doors are cheap. We buy them on state contract. A door with a single doorknob for a closet or a bathroom, you're maybe $100 per door. I did this project in my previous school district, and for classroom, with the classroom hardware, we're only $300 a door with new hinges, new classroom hardware, and the doors themselves. So a closet, bathroom door would be probably only $100.
Okay, any other comments or questions? All right, our next Operations Committee meeting will be Thursday, October 24th, right here in the Cardinal Room, and we are adjourned. We'll take 5 minutes to reset for the Finance Committee.